Pursuant to, actually, it should say Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Board of Health will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation can be found on the Office of the Attorney General's webpage. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted. Draft minutes will be posted on the town's website as soon as possible after the meeting. Pursuant to Mass General Law, in an emergency, a public body shall post notice as soon as reasonably possible prior to the meeting. Notice shall be printed in a legible, easily understandable format and shall contain the date, time, and place of the meeting and a listing of topics that the chair reasonably anticipates will be discussed at the meeting. Okay, that's over. So, Jane, did you take a look at the minutes?
Yes,
Okay,
they seem very good. Thank you, Jessica.
thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome.
Jean? She's muted. Jessica, did you get my punctuation stuff?
Yep, they're fine.
Yeah, I did.
Sorry.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Tammy, did you see him?
Yes, I did. Oh, hold on.
Anything to add or subtract?
No.
No, okay. Okay, I get a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting,
I make a motion
which was
to approve them.
March
4th.
4th, 2021. Okay,
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor? Sue,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
Jerry, yes. Okay, do I have to get the identification of my young person who's at 413-337?
Yeah.
I do? Okay, so according to the open meeting law, I don't know who you are, 413-374-40525. You're certainly welcome to meeting, but we need to know who you are. Okay,
You have to unmute.
you have to unmute yourself. Okay, so what's the procedure here?
Tammy, do you?
I thought that we just kept going the last time this happened.
That's fine with me. I don't have a problem with it.
I don't think it's happened before. Has it?
Just once.
There you are. So we need to have your name and address, I think. Or your name.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear us? My name is Jerry Asian, I'm chair, and pursuant to the open meeting laws, you have to identify yourself and tell us if you're recording the meeting or not, because it's being recorded publicly, so.
Oh, this is Art Pinnell, and I'm not recording the meeting, and I'd like you to know that the join Zoom meeting address that you have on the town website doesn't seem to be working.
Okay, Arthur, nice to see you.
So that's why I'm calling you by phone. What's that?
It's nice to hear from you again.
Yeah.
All right, so Arthur, Tammy, if you don't know, was a former chair. You do
Yeah.
know.
Actually, I think the only or one time that we've met in person, Art came to the meeting.
Okay, so we'll move on.
I think
Anything-
I think Art wants to be on the Board of Health again.
Public comment, Peter?
Nope, nothing today.
Arthur, any public comment?
No, I'm just want to reiterate that your join Zoom meeting address doesn't work on the website, so you need to address that, I think, at some point.
It should be the one that every single one of the members that are on right now use that same address, right?
How did you get on, Art?
I went to the town website and clicked on the address, and it says no meeting exists.
Okay,
So
The same thing happened to me. I had to use the actual like number to log into it.
Huh.
Okay, so we'll check it out and get it fixed. Talk to Jamie and see what the problem is and make sure for the next meeting it's set. Okay,
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I'm good on the phone, you know?
thank you for letting us know.
Yeah.
Kate, any public comment from you or Jessica? Or
No,
Doug
I'll
or
stay.
Joe? No, okay, so we'll reserve time at the end of the meeting if anyone has a comment.
How about Doug? Did you ask Doug?
I did ask Doug.
Okay.
Doug, did you hear me ask you?
I didn't, but
Okay, well,
The-
you made public comment, sir.
nothing other than under the open meeting law, if there's any difficulty with accessing the meeting, the board shall endeavor to make the recording available as soon as possible, which would be by tomorrow morning, which they can certainly do.
Okay, I think that's Jessica's responsibility, is that correct, or Tammy?
Never
We'll
done
get-
anything.
We'll get it done. Don't worry, Dr. Asian.
Okay, it'll get done. If anybody wants to listen to the meeting.
Does Jim just go to the cloud? Is that how it gets put up? I don't even.
I'll send him the link tonight and we'll put it on YouTube tomorrow morning.
Okay,
Okay.
that'll be that.
Perfect.
Joe, you have any public comment? Okay, Health Director's report, Mrs. Spencer.
Okay. The big excitement for the week was there was a car crashed right into the Dunkin' Donuts. The one that is closer to Town Hall than Granby. So that was closed for a little bit, and fire came, police came, building department came. They almost took out the gas line, which was very lucky they didn't. So hopefully they'll be getting the remodel they've always wanted. But then when we were done, I did a regular routine inspection of them afterwards. Let's see, for Title V witnessing this week, I witnessed one perk test at 5 Treetop Lane. I did final inspections at 2 new ones at 21 Sawgrass and 10 Overlook, and 2 repairs at 39 Fernwood and 52 Pineywood. And I had approved plans for 39 Fernwood and 52 Pineywood. And let's see. They had probably one of the more interesting webinars I've had lately, and I think maybe most people are kind of getting exhausted with webinars, but the Mass Health Officers Association today had one called All Things Food, and they had people from DLS to kind of talk about the COVID standards and how they apply, and kind of give tips and tricks for helping out our businesses, and also for doing inspections and things like that. So that's been pretty good.
What does DLS stand for?
DLS is basically the state's OSHA department, Department of Labor and Standards. So every one of the workplace standards that I refer to is written by them, not the Department of Public Health. They're written by the Department of Labor Standards. Unless you're talking about when you go into sports, then that's the EEA. And I think, what other department? No, that's it. Yeah, EEA and then DLS write the standards, the COVID safety standards. CDC had a nice, quick hour-long webinar that I attended called "What to Know When You've Been Fully Vaccinated," and it was mostly science, but it was kind of interesting. We did have a vaccine task force meeting, and the twice weekly public health interagency conference calls have been continuing to go on with the state.
Is there any notion of getting a site at Eastern States yet? Have you heard anything about that?
No, nothing. I've been in contacts with West Springfield too, and they haven't said anything. It is looking less likely because of its proximity to the Eastfield Mall. I
It's
believe.
not proximate to the Eastfield Mall.
Well, according
Okay,
to Jen, that's too close.
move on. Okay. I'm sorry. I
So
don't mean to be cynical.
we'll go straight into COVID-19. Actually, so today,
Anybody have any questions about Tammy's report up to now? Okay, go ahead. COVID-19.
So, over last weekend, there was a back and forth conversation between Kate and Karen Casey from the Southwick Housing Authority and Cindy Sullivan and myself, Cindy Sullivan, our Council on Aging Director, about the fact that through the Massachusetts Senior Affordable Housing COVID-19 vaccine program, that the Housing Authority was able to hold clinics on site, and that their number surpassed the amount of people that they had on site the number of doses surpassed the amount of people they had on site who were going to be taking it. So they opened up some appointments to Southwick residents. So Jess, thank you so much. We spent pretty much the good part of Monday morning registering people and getting people for the first clinic, which was today, and it was this morning at the Southwick or the Depot Court Senior Housing or Affordable Housing, and they had some more doses, so there'll be a second one on Monday, and they'll be holding that one in Westfield at the Housing Authority in Westfield, since Southwick and Westfield, they share Housing Authority services.
We do.
I'm not sure whether or not they're still taking appointments, but I think they were just taking them up to today.
How many people from Southwick got?
Yeah, so we're, about 200 Southwick residents, we've been able to sign up, which, it definitely helps out because that particular, the senior community has a really hard time. Well, no, I take that back. Everybody has a really hard time using the internet to sign it up. I had to do 4 sets of parents, and it wasn't the easiest. It wasn't the easiest thing to do. But at least we can say that we've got at least a good portion of the community. I didn't get to check. I didn't get a chance to check Southwick's vaccination numbers this week. I just have the state's vaccination numbers.
Kate, did you get any of that information?
Which part, Jerry?
The Southwick numbers for how many vaccinations?
I did not look tonight. I was doing the other reports.
Okay.
But we
Fine.
can certainly put the link in the minutes if you want. That might be helpful.
That's fine. I mean, it's just, okay.
Tammy, what was the vaccine?
I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm not.
Was it-
Tomorrow, I'll let you know.
Was it a 2-shot? I mean, they do.
I wasn't there. They were thinking it was most likely a 2-shot because time Stop and Shop, who was the vaccinator, they had only been getting anything that was 2 doses.
And they have appointments for their second dose. Is that correct?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Okay.
I'm assuming they do. I mean, that's how if there is 2 shots, when people would have left, they would have left with their second appointment.
I would assume so.
Yeah, but I not being there, and I wasn't
Okay.
over
That's
the
fine.
place in the rain, certainly. But I can find out for you tomorrow, Sue,
Okay,
what they're doing.
thanks.
But so the latest numbers as of March 11th is that 2,781,490 doses have been shipped to Massachusetts, and 2,353,408 doses have been administered. So it's quite a good number, I would think.
Now, Tammy, other than Monday, will the Housing Authority get more doses afterwards?
I don't think so. I think that addresses their, that was the number to address their staff and their residents.
Yeah.
As far as we've been told.
I agree. Because again, it's the pharmacy who's requesting it. So I think it was a set number. I think Cindy said like total of 400 between Southwick and Westfield. And I think that's going to be it for senior housing at this point anyways.
So is everybody aware of the change in their registration that's the state has come up with?
Do you want me to go through it? I've got it written down.
Be my guest.
Please.
So this week, it was announced the timeline for the remaining residents to receive vaccine. So on March 22nd, we have residents 60 and up and certain workers. On April 5th, we've got residents 55 and up and residents with one certain medical condition. On April 19th is the rest of the general public ages 16 years of age and older. So good news. So on March 22nd, we can public health, so we can all sign up for vaccine. So this is exciting for me and for everybody else. Jess is considered a public health worker and Karen's a public health worker, and they've certainly done their duty in the name of public health, which is great.
Good
Oh,
luck
this-
getting an appointment.
Well, the states opened up the website the way I understand. You can register now,
Mhm.
and they
You
will
register.
they
Yep,
will
you can register.
pre-register, and basically they will call you 2 or 3 weeks out, whatever that number is, and you have 24 hours to take that appointment. So
Right. That's
Um,
the upshot. Yep.
yeah, so my guess is that they're guaranteed enough vaccines, at least they think they are, that it's going to be a 2-3 week lag time, but at least people will know they're registered. And when their turn comes, they'll get an email or a call, which is, I think, takes away the stress of going online and spending 2 hours and trying to get your own appointment. So I'm happy about that. Does everybody see it that way?
Yeah.
I do. I mean, there's been a lot of processes that have kind of fumbled, but trying whatever's going to work. And if they're getting people to pre-register, I think that's really good. And then see what happens. If it increases vaccination rates, that's wonderful.
Arthur, did you want to say anything?
Nope, I'm all set.
Okay. You lit
I
up.
will say that this certainly, the stress and anxiety that I've heard in people's voices when they call asking about the vaccine, this will definitely be a relief to them, that at least they know that their turn is coming and they're on a list. People already that I've spoke to do feel better knowing that they're at least sort of in the queue and that somebody there. And I know that like my mother did receive calls, periodic calls from 211, just asking her, do you still want to be on the list? And luckily they called and she said no, because I got her appointment in CVS. So that was kind of nice that, there was that sort of human element and calling people back.
So it took them 9 months to come up with this solution that should have been done 8 months ago?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Or at least have started it.
Is that reasonable to say, to criticize?
No, I don't think it's reasonable.
Okay, that's fine. I do.
Well, the federal government's trying to have theirs ready for June. That seems like it's 3 months to a year too late, right?
My point being, and I'll leave it for the last time, that if people were registered in the queue, even if they were number 1 million, they would have had a number and they would have known it, as opposed to spending, 4 days getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning and trying to get an appointment. So that's always been, and they finally came around to that conclusion that they need to pre-register people. So, well, however it works, as long as we get needles in the arm, I think that's anything that can do that, I think is good for the people in the Commonwealth. Okay. Next, Timmy, sorry.
Let's see. Have we exhausted vaccine prep? Probably. Do you want me to go over the list of like the workers that are eligible or?
So,
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So starting Monday, restaurant or cafe workers, food-related agricultural and other food service workers, grocery and convenience stores, food pantry workers, medical supply chain workers, vaccine development workers. Like they haven't snuck
No.
at transit and transportation workers,
public works, water, wastewater, or utility workers, sanitation workers, public health workers, court system workers, judges, attorneys, and such, and funeral directors and funeral workers. So those all become eligible on Monday.
There must be some hope in Boston that with letting all these people get open to that, they have some idea that the vaccines are coming in from Washington and we distribute it through Boston. They must have, in order to open it up this quickly.
Well, so also on Monday is the beginning of phase 4, step 1. I kind of would have liked to add maybe another month behind us at least before moving forward to this stage. They must know something we don't in Boston, because it seems too soon, but on the other hand, I don't know.
Okay, well, you know what they say, we'll see.
So they haven't issued any of the new guidance that goes along with whatever's happening on Monday. So they haven't put out the new event standards, and they haven't put out the gathering standard yet. They told us today that more than likely tomorrow or Saturday, which gives me a lot of time to get that out to everybody by Monday. So hopefully we'll see that by tomorrow, the safety standards. Travel advisory was tweaked again this week. So as of Monday, March 22nd, we still have to, all visitors entering Massachusetts, including returning residents, are advised to quarantine for 10 days. They are exempt from the advisory if they've taken the COVID test, same as before. And anyone who's returning after this is what's new. Anyone who's returning to Massachusetts after an absence of less than 24 hours is exempt from the advisory. So if you go visit somebody in Connecticut or Vermont or something like that and return, you're exempt. Let's see. And travelers who are fully vaccinated, who have either both the 2 doses of Moderna or Pfizer or the 1 dose of Johnson & Johnson and have had it 14 days ago, are exempt from the advisory. That's it. So, I like that they added the 24 hours because I think it does make people nervous to even think about doing some of the things that they were allowed to do. Like you always were allowed to go to the doctors in Connecticut or go to the grocery store across the border, go to the, get your car worked on. You were allowed to do those things, but I think that maybe now that there's actually that part is sort of exempt, it might get people to feel more comfortable doing those things. Let's see. That's that for the travel order. So also, I think it was last week. No, it was not last week. It was about 2 weeks ago or so. The Commissioner of Education had put the order out for school systems to move from hybrid to full in-person. Let's see. I've got so many papers here on the world's tiniest desk. Let's see. The time frame that they gave for the schools was April 5th. K through 5 will have to go back to all in person. April 28th, 6th through 8th would have to go back to all in person, and then high school at a later date. Last night, the school committee did their presentation on what they are going to be doing as their final dates and everything like that, along with their capacity and their transportation and other limits. Let me see what the dates are. Where are they? Okay. The anticipated reopening timeline would be April 5th, pre-K through 6, and then April 26th, 7th through 12th would be returning 5 days a week. There would still be the option to be remote for families that didn't want to go back. I was surprised that pretty much across the board at all 3 schools. About a quarter of students are remaining remote after the survey that they had put out. It's pretty good size of the community, which I guess is what lets them be if you put side by side what they were proposing for their safety standards and the DESE safety standards, they are better in most areas than the DESE standards. So it's probably because there are a quarter less kids on site.
So are they gonna be teaching these kids remote? They're gonna be on a computer. Will the kids in the classroom be on the same computer? So it'll just be a Zoom, but inside the classroom? Is that how they're gonna do it?
No, I don't believe so. I believe there are teachers dedicated to the remote teaching.
So it's gonna be 2 different teachers for the same classroom.
I believe so. And my knowledge is only, I don't know exactly about with high school, but
With the lower grades, there are teachers that were dedicated.
High school is different. High school is what you said, Jerry, that whether you're in school or you're home, you're looking at your laptop.
Okay, but if you're in school, there are 2 different teachers for the same class, same.
Not in high school.
No, I know
Not-
that, but from K through 8,
Yeah, not the same class, but like say first grade, there's 3 in person. And then there's maybe 1 or 2 classes that are remote.
different teachers.
So it's not double,
In other words, there aren't gonna be any computers in the school,
right?
except for the high school. Because they'll be on computer, right?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, I think that nowadays that's being on a computer is probably just part of most people's education as it is, pandemic or no pandemic. Although it's no substitute for looking up at the board and looking up at the teacher.
That's that for the school, news of the school department. And I think that's my report. Kate, you want to go? I'll share the screen. We'll go through the numbers.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Here we go.
Colors.
Yeah.
Okay, so this week we're back in the red.
What makes us back in the red, Kate?
The 26 cases for the last 14 days. So the 25 is the break point, and then we went over to 26. We will most likely be in the red next week as well, because we're right now at 24 cases from 3/7 to 3/20. So expect us to be in the red again. And we're also higher percentage-wise than Hampden County. Just a little bit, maybe 0.5%.
Kate, any idea why, what that's attributed to?
Well, there's a lot of families that parents are testing positive, and then either 1 or 2 of the kids are testing positive. But the other thing I'm seeing very interesting is that a lot of people are going for the rapids. So if a rapid is negative, okay, that's not the gold standard. They have to get a PCR. So the PCRs are coming out negative too. So you have this limbo time where the PCR might be positive, negative. So I'm sorry. So the rapid might be positive. The kids go out of school, right? And they make arrangements and everyone gets tested. But the gold standard is PCR. So then those kids can come back with a negative PCR. There is some ramifications from an event on the 5th of March that has caused some positive cases.
When might that be?
Do you want me to say it, Tammy?
Well, it's not an event. It's just that a large group of people dining out
Dining and singing.
gave it to each other.
Yeah, there is a cluster
Was it at a restaurant or?
Outbreak.
Pardon?
banquet hall.
Were they, okay, in Southwick?
In what banquet hall?
The brass rail.
Oh, what a surprise. And
But
what,
were they following the guidelines though?
No,
I've
They weren't?
spoken in great detail with the owner multiple times this week. And apparently much was done to get these people to behave, and
they were deciding that, they didn't want to, so. So we talked a lot about their COVID protocol procedures that, even if you have to be the bad guy, you got to be the bad guy and just, tell these people that they need to sit down. And so hopefully this is a one-off, I hope.
does she have any banquets scheduled?
They're not banquets. So as
This is-
of her COVID plan, if she has routine sit down meals, which means the same night, the same days, every week, all month, then she falls under the restaurant standards. And under the restaurant standards, you can have musical entertainment. So it's not an event. It just falls under the restaurant standards.
So what violation did she do?
What violation?
Did she have a violation that she did, or just people decided to dance and take their chance?
I believe just people really, maybe it's COVID fatigue and everybody just was really having a good time. And, but we all have to be diligent, and, alcohol obviously lessens most people's inhibitions when they're out. They've been living in Footloose, the movie, for 12 months, I'm guessing. So I'm going to be, periodically checking back with her to see how these things go. And hopefully we won't have an occurrence like this again.
How many positive cases in Southwick came out of that?
11.
11.
And so that's just the beginning of the tree. We don't know where those 11 will go, right?
And that's the people that told us where they were. People
Yeah.
don't always tell us
They don't.
where they've been, which concerns me greatly.
So does the board wish to see if we have any jurisdiction over this, or we just let it go? Sue?
Well, Tammy would know better than I would.
Tammy, do we have
I mean,
any jurisdiction?
I did the follow-up with the protocols and everything like that. Seeing as I wasn't there and no representatives of the Board of Health are there, it's kind of the stories that have been told to me as against, the stories that have been told about what went on there.
Could I ask a question if this is appropriate?
Anything
Because I
else?
really don't want to see another outbreak. Would it be appropriate for a police officer to stop by Friday night at that
Doug,
environment?
you here?
Yes,
So what's your answer to that?
my tongue is bleeding from biting it so bloody hard, right?
Okay.
I've gotten more than a few text messages from folks in towns with pictures of that parking lot. I don't know the rules, right? But I will also tell you, no, that's not even fair to say. We've been around and around the Roseberry bush with this operator throughout this pandemic at about every angle, right? We brought in a food truck serving booze when you're not supposed to. We stacked them up at the walk on water. They were 100 people deep in line, packed front to back all summer to get into their capacity limited place, right? And the brass rail, since they reopened it, it's been packed on Sundays. Whether it's okay or not, I don't know. But, and this is just Doug Moglen's opinion, is she doesn't care,
Right.
right?
So
She
Tammy, what-
doesn't care. So let me
what's-
finish. So
I'm
I just
sorry.
think, I don't know if I don't know that I want to make the cops the heavy here and send them in. I don't know if they have the right or the knowledge to go in and count heads. But, if Jennifer or the operator was so adamant that these people wouldn't follow the rules, and she was so serious about enforcing the protocol, she'd have kicked them out. And here we are with 11. So put us in the red for the next 2 weeks because of this outbreak. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox, and I usually don't bust out and get pissed off on these things, but that's the end of it for me.
So this sounds like the sequel to the Russian church. So Tammy, what are our options for enforcement?
I'm not opposed to asking to see if we can just,
we could have an officer stop by and just see that they are following the protocols, because there's not a capacity limit right now. It's been lifted.
So what's the, so they
People
can
have
have
to be,
200
people
they can
have to be seated and at 6 per table, at 6 foot apart.
And there's no dancing, is
I'm
that right?
actually going there either Monday or Tuesday.
So she can fit as many people as she can fit. if she
Yeah, like
wants.
I've seen the setup.
And
It's really big. I mean,
I know.
it's a big spot in there, and 6
Tammy,
feet.
I'm
Doesn't
sorry,
look-
Tammy, when was the
It
last
is.
time the kitchen was inspected?
In like early fall. Yeah, early fall.
You have an
Well, it's
inspection report on
Brand new
them?
owner, and it's a brand new owner, and so everything, I had to start everything from scratch with them this year.
so they can have as many people there as they want, as long as there's only 6 people at a table. Can they stay more than 90 minutes? Has that been lifted?
oh gosh, is that still applicable? You know, I don't know if the 90 minutes is still applicable. That might have been lifted on the March 1st. I'll have to look that up.
So we're passing the ball around the maypole here. If nobody knows what we can do and who will do it.
Is
this is
dancing
good.
permitted? Is dancing permitted?
No, dancing's not permitted, and after March 22nd, it will only be permitted at events like weddings and things like that. So
What
The
not,
thing
are-
that the
not-
thing that I asked Tammy is that if we can do anything mitigation wise, is that she have a sign in your name, your address, and phone number.
Well, they're supposed to do that with they're supposed
Well-
to do that, aren't they?
no, that's not required.
Not anymore?
It never was.
I think
Okay.
some businesses did it out of, proactiveness.
It's still 90 minutes.
But I mean, I just, we were doing so good, and if there are breaches of the guidance out of ignorance or defiance, that's not okay.
So
I would have a serious problem with that.
So we need to get our head out of the sand and see what we can do. I mean, I really don't know what we can do. Sue,
Are there
What do
any
you wanna do?
penalties?
I guess there's fines, $500 per person. Is that correct?
There can be penalties, yeah.
And how about to the owner?
I would believe they would go to the business owner, not to the person
Mm.
in the restaurant. I
And
mean, ultimately, the actions of the customers fall upon the owner, manager.
I mean, were there food permits paid for on time?
Not on time, but I think we've already discussed this.
No, we haven't, actually. Have they been fined?
So they filled out their paperwork in 20. They handed in everything but the checks.
And do you have a check?
Everything's been paid up.
As of when?
A couple weeks ago.
That's a little too late. She
I
should have
know-
been fined a long time ago. According to
I
the
guess
Board
you
of
can make
Health
the argument
regulations.
that they weren't late because they brought the stuff in.
They didn't
Stuff's no
pay
good
for
without the
it.
check.
We have the checks.
We got it late.
Yes.
So-
Everybody's checks have come in now.
I know. So the point is, are we going to allow this again to happen on Sunday? Or is there anything anybody wants to pursue on this? Do you want Tammy to go out with the police officer and count heads and see what they're doing and start issuing fines? I mean.
What
my
do they
guess is-
have on Sunday? They have a brunch on Sunday?
They have
Yes.
a brunch. They have,
If I was a betting man, I would say that this owner is not going to cooperate. And I don't know what,
Hey,
She's
wait,
been
Jerry,
very
wait a
cooperative in
minute.
all the phone calls that I've had with her. And I'm going next week. I mean, for whatever that means to anybody, like,
I
Tammy
was
doesn't
told
know.
the function was gonna be tomorrow night.
they're not functions. They're routine, they're routine events.
Considered standard seating service. And
So they can have music.
yes,
but no dancing
but no dancing.
and no, they can have music and singing.
It does start to sound like Footloose, doesn't it?
It
Yeah,
does sound.
I know.
And I get it, but I mean,
But, like, we
it-
gotta remember that this is like a group of people went out, gave it to each other. They sat down, they did not wear masks, they drank and they ate. And now that we've got the UK variant going through the state, it is spreading much faster than the other variants were.
And they sang,
So
Yeah, which is
my
a-
point is,
which is a
do
issue
we
with
keep our
spread.
head in the sand?
Yeah.
Or do we try and do something about this? Because I don't think
I-
the owner's going to be, despite what Tammy did, I'm sorry, I don't mean to
I don't
argue with you.
feel like we've got a head in the stand when I'm going there next week.
Tammy, you can go there until the cows come home, and she's not going to do it.
Okay.
On Friday and Saturday and Sunday, if she has a brunch, she's going to pack that place to capacity, and she won't care what you say on Saturday, Monday, or Tuesday. Anybody else disagree with me?
What is the capacity of that place? If they can, there's no limit now.
I'm not sure. It's whatever their building occupancy is.
Does anybody disagree with me about my opinion about the owner?
No, there's been a history.
Doug?
Yeah, you asked if anybody disagrees with you and you didn't hear anything. So everyone agrees with you, Dr. Asia.
So we can assume that she's not going to cooperate, and she
She
hasn't.
just pushes, Jerry.
She
Jerry,
hasn't
she just
cooperated.
pushes.
She hasn't cooperated since she opened that Louis B's, and she opened up without the sewer hookup and no septic. And she opened up because one of the selectmen told the cops not to go down there and close her down. And that's the history, and it hasn't changed since she opened.
Could
So
we, Jerry,
if we're gonna continue to let her get away with it, then we'll do it, but she's
Jerry?
not gonna cooperate.
could we first find out what the capacity is based on
Sure, it's huge.
6 per table and 6 feet apart?
I'm fine with the two you want to do. Jane?
So when I went and through their inspection and through their their COVID-19 inspection at the same time, I don't know the number of tables, but the tables that they had there fit.
The requirements. They
Yeah,
didn't.
it's a huge place.
They didn't have to be removed. They were all 6 to 8 feet apart. So it whatever it was, whatever they were, whatever their seating is per the building department is what they're allowed to have in there.
So my other point is I think we're a little bit late to the dance.
So to speak.
With the vaccines coming up, and I think with the lack of, how should I put this? Incentive to do anything about this. I think it's just gonna go on and on. You know, Kate, until everybody gets vaccine or people get COVID. And unless we want to do something forceful, then nothing's gonna change. I don't care how much capacity she's got, whether it's 10 or 2,000. She'll fill it up and she'll do what she wants to do. It's my opinion. I could be wrong. Maybe Tammy, you go in there on Sunday with a police officer and she's doing everything right and people are sitting there with, is it 6 at a table?
Yes.
And she only has 6 people at every table?
Oh, you know, I don't know if that changes. I don't know if that changes on Monday because they haven't put out the Monday guide.
Well, this is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So
Right.
6 at a table, 90-minute capacity, 90-minute time limit, no
We don't know if
singing.
it's 90 minutes. Tammy,
It's 90 minutes.
It is 90, yeah.
So my question to you, Gene, and to you, Sue, is there anything you want to do, or you just want to let it ride?
Okay, so Tammy goes in, they're dancing, they're singing. Then what?
I think probably she goes into a police officer. That's what I think. With a ticket book. And find out sometime tomorrow what they can do and what she can do. If Tammy believes there's a violation. She needs to be prepared and not have to come back to us in 2 weeks and say, well, they were singing and dancing. There was a lot of alcohol and it's over. What are you gonna do? Start writing tickets for something that happened 2 weeks ago?
Hey, who suggested the sign-in book, Kate?
Yeah. But again,
Doesn't matter.
that's right. Thank you. So unless you're prepared to go in with a police officer with a ticket book, if that's what he can do, and the health director to say you're not only your limit, but I think Kate has a good point of having him sign in, put the time they signed in, but whatever. But unless we're prepared to do some enforcement, then coming back to us in 2 weeks and telling us that they were, and as Doug said, he's going to get 100 texts saying that Brass Rail had 5,000 cars in it. Am I right, Doug?
And that's,
But I
and
don't know-
that's
and I
not
don't know-
okay.
Well, I mean, I don't know, I just want to quantify that, right? And I'm not stepping away from it, but that place is huge, right? And the same thing, there's other restaurants in town. They could put an enormous number of people in because they're allowed to go to capacity subject to 6 at a table, 6 feet from each table. They can put a lot of people in their building. I don't
Okay.
doubt that, right? So, and I'm not a good judge of, cars to tables versus the overall space, right?
So
There
she had
were there were ones that were obvious, right? That we had an issue at the church that was rectified, right? It was obvious driving by that it was impossible, given the number of cars and the size of the building, that they could do it. But you look at the Brass Rail, I don't know the answer. The
So
fact is,
what do they do on Friday nights? Is it just a dinner dance, a dinner what? And the Sunday's a brunch,
It's a
right?
Nora's night, is I believe Friday night. So the chef from Nora's, because Nora's isn't opening because there's no room,
Right.
their menu on Friday. They do
So-
different.
So I understand Fridays is the big problem, that they fill it up. So, Sue,
Do they
Mhm.
have entertainment Friday night?
Yeah.
And so that's the problem there if the dancing isn't allowed.
So, I mean, I spoke at great length about that activity this week with the owner.
So, I mean, I think, if we could send an officer in tomorrow night just to make sure the dancing isn't going on. And
okay, but it's no good to send an officer in there if he isn't going to, if he's just going to report back to Chief Bishop.
no, they will call me directly. They always call me directly.
And then what are you prepared to tell him to do?
I can go there myself. I mean, if it's an issue.
Fine, Sue?
Yeah, I think Tammy's spoken with her, and even though we know what the history is, and then she's going there next week. Hopefully they have tables set up over the dance floor.
Okay, the horse has been beaten. Anybody else have any comment about
And
this?
Tammy, and
I
Okay,
do.
Karen.
Wait a minute.
I do. This is Kate.
Okay.
I'm gonna push this a little bit. I'm gonna insist that there is a sign-in. Because if you're talking 150 people in that building, how do I contact trace? That's not fair on my side if she's gonna break the rules. I mean, that's not okay.
I happen to agree with you, Kate.
It's
So-
not, if I have to contact trace 150 people and find positive cases, I don't even know what the 11 have really meant in terms of contact tracing. And that should not be put on me. That should be put on the owner. And I'm going to push that. If she wants to do that and push her issue, I'm going to push mine as the public health nurse for this town.
So it doesn't often happen, but it happens a lot. I actually agree 100% with Kate.
She's broken the rules all summer, Jerry.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Kate. So, do we need a motion to make her do a sign in, or can we do it, or what's the rule?
If you bring a book to the restaurant, hand it to the owner and say, look, everybody has to sign in.
With the
What
time?
makes you think that this woman who has broken every rule on every single level of the town is going to make those people sign the book?
I can't enforce that, Jean.
That's my point.
I
And she's
can't.
not gonna do it unless
Oh.
you stand there with the book all night long. It's not gonna happen.
I'll stand there.
Or we
Feel
send
free.
Or we send the police officer.
I
in there.
mean, there's a cause and effect. Everyone's decision has a cause and effect of,
So,
you know,
is it possible?
skirting
to
the
send-
edge of the guidance.
So is it possible to send a police officer in there to do that? Doug?
We can always ask them to do that. That's not a problem. I don't see anywhere in the governor's order or advisory that is compelling a restaurant to have a sign-in book. I appreciate what Kate is saying. I just don't think you can say we would like for you, but I don't think you could say you must. And I don't think you guys have a rulemaking authority in such short order that you could adopt a rule. If you wanted to adopt a law, then it would go to town meeting in May and we'll be done with this pandemic, right? So I just don't see how it's legally you could impose that condition outside of the governor's
Right.
order.
And I don't think it's a legal thing. I think it's be a good community
No,
partner
Oh,
Yeah, and we've-
Kate,
Oh,
Kate, we've been beating our head
Okay.
against the wall with this for years.
or not.
I get it. I totally understand, Kate, and I empathize. I just don't see if you say do that and they say no and you have to leave with your book, because I don't see how you can, unless I'm misreading it, and I'm not the expert on this, I don't see where it's in the statute or in the governor's order to compel.
Well, if the state continues seeing cases from there, there'll be more state involvement.
Totally agree.
So,
So that I think she's been allowed to to skirt this for years, that whether it's this or liquor closing down for places during the winter and still keeping her liquor license. There's always been a reason
Well,
that.
but I think-
Go ahead.
I'm just saying, yeah, I mean, you have to look at the total picture, but in this particular case, I think you just look at the example of what you have here and what's going on in this particular thing in the middle of a pandemic. And I mean, you can't go back. I personally don't think you can go back to the sewer issue or closing the bar in the winter or whatever happened under the liquor rules, right? This is under the governor's order. If she did or didn't meet the governor's order, and
It just
know,
fits, it fits.
I get it, but you got 11 people. I'd like to know, and maybe the answer is, were those 11 people at adjoining tables, or did you have 11 people at one table that managed to get COVID? And there's your answer right there, because it says 6 and 6. So it almost doesn't stand to reason that 11 people from one event got COVID, right? So, happened to be all buddies hanging out together. So something wasn't right with the six people at a table, 6 feet apart. So,
but
and,
if they
and
commingled,
and-
but if they commingled, Doug, right?
it's not what it
They
says
got
in the,
up?
I get it, but it's not what it says in the book, right? And I don't know, I wasn't there. And then she says, well, we tried to get them to comply, but they wouldn't, and she wouldn't put her foot down. I get it. And I understand
Didn't put
this is
her
a
foot down.
terrible, well, I know it, this is
She
a
didn't,
predicament.
Not that she wouldn't.
But, so yeah, you do look at it in context, and I put it in a little bit of context from the beginning because of past practice through the pandemic. I didn't even use any of the other issues with, the checks late or this other thing, but we already have at least 3 or 4 different things within the pandemic related stuff that would cause to be concerned. That's why I have no issue with asking the cops to go down there, and if they see something untoward, to call Tammy. Also, it's also probably too late, right? Because it is what it is. Right, by the time anyone gets there and says, yeah, that's no good, it's already happened.
Well, if the
Yeah, but at
police
least we're
officer,
seeing it, at least we're witnessing it.
if the police officer shows up at, 7:30 or 8 o'clock and sees the mess, then I guess he can
I get it.
I know you get it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Arthur.
Mr. Chairman, this is
Yes.
Art. A couple of thoughts. I think you're aware that the Board of Health can enact regulations outside of town meeting on their own. However, enacting a regulation is a lengthy process. The other thought that comes to my mind is there's some emergency authorization that would allow you to order maybe not one business, but say town-wide, enact an order requiring people to sign in, because, this is probably about as serious as you're going to get in terms of trying to curtail an immediate spread, an identifiable dangerous situation. I don't know what emergency powers the Board of Health has, but it might be worth looking into, as an immediate remedy.
Sue?
I'd have to ask Tammy.
I'm
I
asking,
do not know Board of Health regulation.
it's a legal opinion. It's not a director's opinion. It's, do we want to vote on a regulation that's effective immediately, that, not a regulation, but a rule or whatever, that every restaurant in town has to have a sign-in sheet? Because I've been to a number of restaurants in town, out of town, not in town, but out of town, they're in Mass, and they still take your name and number. And it's not I've been there, going there for whatever, and they still do. Let's take.
And how do we enforce this?
Pardon?
We can have an order, then how do you enforce it? Like what Jean said.
Well, if you want to pass the rule tonight and then type it up, bring it down, or bring it to every restaurant in town and say, effective immediately, you have to sign everybody in with their phone, contact number, and have it effective tonight. And you can get it. There's not a lot of restaurants in town this pertains to, but it's not onerous because there aren't a lot of people going to restaurants. So I think it's reasonable, and it can be done if you want to have it done. If you don't want to do it, then the only thing we can do is try. If she doesn't do it, then she doesn't do it. So,
Yeah, I'd like to try, but I want to make sure we can do this legally.
well, we're not going to be able to do it tonight unless you want to call Mike, Ken Albano on the phone, or whoever's over there now. I mean, tomorrow night she's going to have another party over there.
All right, we'll have a police officer go in. Anybody know the time frame?
No, I don't.
Joe, you still on the call?
Yes, sir. And my lips are bleeding worse than Doug Moglen's, and I'm not going to blow up. And it takes me a lot not to blow up right now, to be honest.
No, I
with
mean,
you.
do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I do have suggestions. You drop the goddamn book off and you start the process. Restaurants in this town are already doing it, whether they want to or not. They do it. I'm not going to get into which ones. I know two that do it right now. They just do it. They did it at the beginning because they were told to do it. Now that may have been lifted, but I've been texting two of them, and yeah, they go, well, we still do it just so we have that contact tracing information if it's needed. And they're both reputable businesses, so they do it. Drop it off. What is she going to tell you? No, then it's just one more candle in the cake, right? I would drop it off. Say, hey, look, you had 11 outbreaks that we're aware of. Here's the book. We would like you to have name and addresses because, quite honestly, and their phone number, absolutely, because we're overwhelmed at our small department, and you need to help us on this. And if he says no, then there's your answer for Tammy next week when she visits, right? I mean, this is not a game, and if it's illegal, oh well, we did something illegal. Slap us on the wrist, send us down the road. Sue us, as we say, right?
She's not.
You
can't prove it. She's not going to be able to because there's no loss. If we would try to close her down and she has a loss, then it's a different problem.
Right. I just think you just tell her to sign the damn book and you bring it to her. And if she doesn't, she doesn't.
Bringing this so-called book down to her tomorrow and tell her, hey, we want, because you had 11 breakouts.
Right.
We want you to sign everybody in and out. And
it's safe. It's safe for her too, right? Because like Doug said, you got 11 on two tables. Were they next to each other? You know what? They weren't singing at the table. They were singing in a microphone with the musician. So things happen. We get it. Let's just try to fix it now. And we can only do so much with the owner operators. We all get that. But that's no reason for us to not really look the other way, but just say, well, the vaccines are coming. You know what? It's about time we just say, hey, fill the book out, please. Kate Johnson does not want to spend the rest of her life doing contact tracing.
No, I
Sue, are you
don't.
okay with that?
Yeah, if you ask her, don't do an order, but I'd like to see penalties. I mean, isn't that what people understand more?
Well, yeah, but that's what the police officer and Tammy are down to go there tomorrow night and see if they're complying and then start to write tickets.
And then you write tickets to the individual or to the owner?
Well, Tammy,
I believe we would do it to the owner.
okay, then start writing tickets to the owner.
And the ticket is how much?
I think 300 to 500
For each
Per
person that's in violation?
for each instance of violation of the code. So I would assume if it's,
So
So one would be what, when they're seated at their table, they can remove their mask at their table?
yes,
All right. No dancing. They can't get up singing. They can't wander around, correct? They can't get up and walk around
unless you're going to the restrooms.
to the restrooms.
you have
No.
to put your mask on.
Right.
No bars open.
So Kate, are you, Jeannie, so what do you think about that?
I'm fine with somebody bringing her a book and saying, hey, sign it, but I doubt if she's going to do it. I
Okay,
doubt
so-
if she's going to comply in any way. But
okay,
I
so-
also don't want to see Tammy having to drive from Chicopee at 10 o'clock
Springfield.
at night to find out what people are doing at this restaurant.
Okay, I think that's not, I think that's reasonable, but I think that Tammy can sit down with the police chief tomorrow and get a plan to have an officer go out there and can call her at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock and say, this is what's going on. And she can say, hey, start writing tickets. And where's your book? Because again, it adds a candle to the cake on when she comes up against somebody again with the history. And past history means a lot, I think.
And I hope it's all documented.
Okay.
Yep.
Sue, let's get a plan. What do you think?
First of all, I'd like to know what is going to go on tomorrow night and what time does it start? Does she have an end time? What time does Baker say things have to close? Tammy, do you know that?
There's no restriction on time anymore. They lifted that.
1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whenever you.
What does
can-
Southwick say for a curfew? Well, we don't have one.
I think it's a 1 o'clock. You can't start serve at 1 o'clock. You can't serve after 1. Liquor. Joe, is that right? Doug?
They can't stay there for more than 90 minutes anyway.
Right.
Mhm.
So is it a private party or is it a dinner? What is it tomorrow night?
It's just an
It's
open
not private, it's
restaurant.
open.
Wait a minute,
Open.
one at a time.
Sorry.
What is it, Tammy?
It's open. It's open seating. It's not a party. It's open seating.
So what would you suggest would be a good time for an officer to visit?
Maybe 8 or 9.
I would say whenever she opens,
Well, I think
if possible.
the crowds are going to come in, but I think she should get the book sometime tomorrow, whenever Tammy can get it over there. And give her some advance notice. Listen, we're sending a police officer in here to check on you. So it might get her to do something. And anyways,
Well, why don't we just have a police officer show up?
yeah, we're going to tell her that police officer is going to show up, but if you open up at 5:30, your crowd's not going to get to over capacity and singing till 8 or 8:30 or 9, probably. If that'd be my guesstimate, but I mean, unless you're going to put a police officer in there all night.
No. Well,
You have
maybe
to pick-
Tammy can talk to the chief and see what he suggests.
Well, what would be the plan that Tammy's going to go there with?
What have we been talking about all night?
Okay, Jean?
Yeah, I believe we already established that.
Okay. Kate, you feel that we're on the right track here?
Yes, I do.
Okay, how about you, Doug, Joe?
Tammy, could you bring the screen down?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Doug, Joe, you pretty much think that this is an adequate first step?
Yeah, you know, she is what she is, right? Sometimes when you hold her hand, oh, she does come around.
Okay,
You know, and maybe this is, you know, and that's what we're doing, right? Hey, you know, we know what happened. We get it. And here's the book. And she, how do you say that? She's not a dumb person. She gets it. And like you said, she likes to run around the edge of that circle. And, you know, if I had to bet, the book would get filled out. Not saying it'd be accurate, but I'm sure it would get filled out.
Doug?
No.
Doug?
You're the elected Board of Health. I've given my opinion on it. As I don't, if you guys think that'll work, that's great. And whatever we can do to support you, right? I just, and for whatever it's worth, you know, that we're going to move to step 4, phase 1 or
Monday.
A or whatever it is on Monday, right? So a lot of this is going to be water under the bridge, but I hate it that we got 11 people sick.
No, you know you got 11 people sick. You got more than 11 people sick.
Exactly. And you know what? So, and you know, but I don't know if it's our job to be the overall nanny, but I think, you know, you got to keep a level playing field here too, right? You've got other businesses that have struggled and fought and done the right thing the whole way. And then, you know, others have just been blatant about it the whole time. I
Arthur,
didn't make these rules.
Arthur, can I have some of your wisdom about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely worth a call to town council tomorrow morning, first thing, and explain to them what you're trying to do and how you're doing it. And I think it's a worthwhile effort myself because of the seriousness of the situation. And it's identifiably traceable to activity there. And I think it's, you know, whether or not it's considered an emergency, I almost think you could say that, you know, your actions tonight, what you're planning is an emergency action based on the situation there, because it could get a lot worse. I mean, right? It's like, you know, you have the authority to do emergency things. If there's a fire in a food store or a restaurant, you can shut them down because their food's contaminated, for example. Right away, you can do that. So I think if the board considers this an emergency, and that's up for you guys to decide, I think you have a lot of leeway. But, you know, again, I would try to cover as many bases as you can in terms of organizing how you go about it. You know, establish the evidence that there's this violation. You may already have that. I don't know. And the seriousness of it, and you've decided that this action, is warranted because it's an emergency situation. And I personally, I think it's serious, but that's up for you guys to decide.
And we
So-
are still considered in a pandemic.
Yeah.
She's left for some reason. Oh, she back? Jeannie?
You know, again, how many times can you beat a dead horse? Everybody in this screen has given their opinion, has stated what they would like. There are 3 Board of Health members here that need to decide. I think
Okay.
we need to focus on the fact that we are the Board of Health and we are going to make a decision.
So,
May I ask a question? If
Sure,
this
sure.
has been going on for a while, how come we didn't know about it? I mean, Doug, you said you got complaints. How come we didn't know about it? Tammy, did you know about it?
I've never received one call, one email, one complaint.
okay,
Just seems we might have been able to prevent this if we knew about it in the beginning.
so, can we get the board's
Yeah, we're gonna Tammy's gonna drop some kind of guest book off. I don't know where you're gonna pick one up, maybe.
Where do I get one?
Maybe Ocean State. I don't
Yeah.
know. And gonna talk with the chief and see about what's a good time for an officer to stop in. And if there's a problem, he's gonna call Tammy. You have your fine book or whatever, right? Your book do you have a book for writing fines?
It's non-criminal disposition. It'll be,
21
you have books in the town clerk's office.
So what's planned for tomorrow is an amazing weekend at Brass Rail with live music, great food and entertainment.
There you
Norris
go.
Friday night with live music with Sam Chevalier from 6 to 9. Bingo dinner Saturday with live music with Ally, reservation required. And Sunday brunch Sunday with live music with Willie Smith from 10:30 to 1:30.
There you go.
That's what they got planned. 3
That's
days of
great.
COVID spreading.
Again, this board needs to make a decision. I
Okay.
don't care.
So I can't make the chief send a cop, right? The select board can, but I can't. I can only send Tammy or Doug or Joe into the chief's office tomorrow and say, listen, the Board of Health wants a police officer to go down. They're going to have a sign-in book. We want the police officer to make sure people are signing in and they're sitting at their tables. And if they're not, then
Didn't I just paraphrase all that or no?
Yeah,
well, we
you know,
need to make a
this
motion to
is
do
this
it.
is round number.
Yeah,
seven.
make
all that
It's the same
tomorrow.
thing.
I make a motion, what I just paraphrased before, Jessica has it in the sound recording.
Okay, take a second.
I'll second.
Okay, are we clear on it, Tammy?
Yes, I
Okay.
will
All
get
in
a
favor?
book and drop it off and
I,
talk to chief. Sorry.
Aye, okay. Doug and Joe, you may get a call from the chief tomorrow. So,
I'm thinking maybe 8 o'clock?
well, they're open from 6 to 9. So, 8 o'clock is probably a good time. There'll be a capacity.
Tammy,
that's
when
it.
you go in there, see if there's tables on the dance floor.
Okay.
and make measurements to make sure the tables indeed are 6 feet apart.
Okay.
You want me to go in tomorrow or make measurements when I go in next week, you mean?
No,
Tomorrow, when you bring the book,
Oh,
make sure
yeah,
the
yeah,
tables
yeah.
are far
Sorry.
apart.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay, so we'll do what we can do and we'll move on. Okay, thank you. We beat it. We really did beat this.
Yeah.
Sorry, my fault.
And then Tammy, when you go next week, you can see if people have written in the guest book.
And could I ask that it would be the date, the name, printed name, address, and phone number? That's what I would need to contact Trace.
A name and a phone number could be fine for contact tracing too, couldn't it?
I would need an address. That does help, actually. If there's
So you-
if there's people that
Okay.
are there
again,
from a family.
Okay, we're pretty much done with this.
Okay. so
Yeah.
we'll
We
try
already
again now.
motion voted. I think it's done,
All
okay?
done. Tammy, you got your marching order? Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
Okay,
That's my list. That's my report.
okay, we earned our money today. Okay. Peter, you have any questions?
No questions this time.
Okay.
That connection.
He said no questions.
No questions.
Okay.
Arthur?
And I'm all set, Chair.
To go around the circle again, should we require this for Saturday and Sunday too? Because she's having large events both nights, all
Mhm.
3 days?
Well, I think let Tammy talk it over with the chief and that'd be nice, if they could stop in those nights
Okay, so
or those days, Sunday
get the
day.
book for the 3 nights and have a police officer go in Saturday night and Sunday afternoon. So we'll see what's going on. I know he was reluctant. Okay, never mind. Let's go. Okay, so.
Yes, we're done, Jerry,
We're done. I
okay?
said it. Thank you, Gene. So we're gonna go into executive session now, so everyone else needs to leave except the board members.
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion to go into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter C, 30A, subparagraph 21, 2 and 3, Chapter 214, Section 1B, and CMR 20.031B, Health Directors Contract Negotiations and Collective Bargaining. A person shall have the right against unreasonable, substantial, or serious interference with their privacy. Superior Court shall have jurisdiction and equity to enforce such right and in connection thereof to award damages. I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.